So am I different to what you expected?
Perhaps. You seem
Go on.
cleaner.
That's honest. Cleaner.
What? Wait a minute, what are you doing?
Come on, have a smell. Take a schmeck. Come on.
Yiddish now? Wait a second.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, wait.
Oh.
Let me see. Not bad.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't quite place it, though.
Patchouli
Uh-huh.
and pond scum.
And that's a clip from Hampstead, which stars Diane Keaton and Brendan Gleeson, who is with us here today. Hello, Brendan.
Simon,
how are you,
doing?
sir?
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And so we have it's a rom-com. Rom-com, are you happy with that as a description?
Happy with whatever they want to call it, yeah.
What would you call it? How was it described to you when you first heard about it?
A film. Yeah, I suppose that's what it is. It's pretty apologetic about that. Nothing wrong with that either. So yeah, it's good. It's kind of a second chance time, I think.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's an older love story, so therefore you have to bring the notion of personality into it.
Have you? I was looking at your filmography today. I don't see a lot of. I mean, you've been romantically involved in many movies.
I have,
but not as kind of romances like the main plot line, I think.
No.
Would that be right?
No, that's true. And yeah, it's always refreshing to have a go at that. And a lot of fun. You know, it's always interesting to wait to find what the female input is going to be in stories like this, because they're never what you expect. And with Diane Keaton, they're obviously never even what you have any hope or dream of sort of figuring out what it's going to be before it happens.
What did you expect before you met her?
I wasn't quite sure. I just knew that it was going to be different to anything that I could make up, so I didn't bother making anything up, really. I just kind of let it happen, which is kind of the secret to it, I think.
And when you met and when you discussed your relationship, what was that like? What is it like working with Diane Keaton? She's such an extraordinary actress over so many years.
Yeah, she's completely herself. She's very bright, and she's an awful lot of fun, and the two don't always go together. So there's a kind of a combination of sort of bats, mad as a brush type stuff, with a really sort of interesting, intelligent take on life and a really generous spirit. So she's completely irrepressible, and I missed her when it was over.
She's quoted as saying, "I couldn't wait to get under the sheets with Brendan." Under the covers, I beg your pardon. The man is amazing.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means. She's very unpredictable, isn't she? Like, there's no telling what she'll come out with next.
In case we haven't actually told the story, or you haven't explained the story. So it's called Hampstead.
It's in Hampstead.
It is recognisably in Hampstead. Tell us the broad brushstrokes here.
It's a romance about a guy who lives in a shack and a woman who lives in a mansion type of thing. So it's a fairy tale. However, it's based. When I got the script first of all, Joel Hopkins was directing it, and I loved Last Chance Harvey. It was one of those ones that really jumped out at me. I really loved that film. So I was kind of interested in finding out how this was going to go, and the trial scene came up, and I said, this has to be true because it's so bizarre. And it's one of the eccentricities of Britain, really, that this kind of law is there. And one of the great things, one of the kind of refreshing things, just when despair comes crashing down on everything, you kind of think, no, there's a law where the little guy wins. And it was based on a trial that happened in 2007 involving a man called Harry Howells, who lived just off the heath on that lone house grounds. But the developers tried to throw him off the land to develop. And he won the court case to his own home. So there is a kind of a sub theme to this thing about homelessness and about what home means, which is kind of refreshing, I think, and the notion of being slightly off-grid and being slightly out of the tech world. And there's a cost to be paid for that, of course, and that is usually isolation. And my guy is a little overly isolated maybe by the time we come to meet him, and then obviously Diane Keaton arrives, and that's the end of that.
As you could imagine that it would be. So you aren't playing Harry Howells. It's sort of inspired by the story, but you did try to meet him.
Well, I did, because I went out, I was doing something else here, and I had a day off on a Friday, and I said, I'll just walk around London Not exactly retail therapy. I just want to look and go just take part in the city. And then somebody told me it was Black Friday, where everybody goes completely frantic about consumer goods. And I said, I can't be doing with that. And my agent, actually, Terry Hayden, said, why don't you go out to Hampstead and have a look around? So I did. So it kind of happened by accident. And I went out on a very rainy day and slipped and slid all over the place in my little city shoes in Hampstead Heath for a bit, up around at Athlone House. And I met a park ranger there who very helpfully kind of said that he'll just see if Harry would talk to me. But Harry didn't really want to talk to me, which kind of was interesting of itself. So when I heard the film was going to go ahead, I wrote him a letter just to say, look, it's going on. And I thought it'd be discourteous not to let him know that. And he wasn't well at the time and said that he appreciated the courtesy of the letter and that he didn't want anything to do with it, but he had no particularly issue with it either. So I was happy that happened, because we were slightly corralling some of his life story for our own purposes. But after that, once I felt that was okay, I was free to make the character whom I wanted, or whoever Joel wanted me to, wherever he wanted to bring that, because it wasn't Harry himself who we're trying to portray, but somebody of his circumstances in a rom-com, which is a slight fairy tale.
Were you disappointed or reassured that he didn't want to meet Brendan Gleeson? Because you'd gone there, you're about to play him in a movie. Most people would go, oh, it's nice to meet you. Yes, this is my life story and so on. But the fact that he had no interest in meeting you at all maybe is quite in character.
Well, it was totally in character. Kind of part of me really wanted to play him after that. And then part of me said, that don't be obtuse about it. It's just like, don't be contrary. But I was I would have preferred to chat to him. I didn't expect I had the right to chat to him, though, and what I wrote to him in the letter is that I really wanted to do it as a courtesy, but I certainly didn't want to disrespect him, and I didn't want to impinge on his privacy, because I know what that's like, and it's not nice. And part of the reason I wanted to let him know that it was going on, if he had any objections, was that I thought people would be walking all over the heath and knocking on his door, poking at him and looking for selfies and things like that. And I was actually worried. And it turned out that the developers of the film had actually spoken to him already, and that he had indicated also that he didn't care what we did. But I thought it was important just to make the contact. And I was delighted when it came back, even though it was by proxy. I really did not want to disrespect him.
For people who don't know the area, they'll soon get a picture and a sense of it when they see your film. But just to emphasise, this is one of the wealthiest parts of London. And the house where Diane Keaton lives is mansion, extraordinary flats. And she looks onto your shack. And the original stats were that Harry's shack was 130 feet by 65, but was worth $3.5 million.
Well, you see, this is the thing. I mean, Harry's flat worth $3.5 million is a kind of a nonsense, and that's what I love about the film and I love about his story. In the end, he had no interest in cashing in at all. He didn't sell the place. He stayed in it. So, in fact, the shack was the same before the trial as it was after the trial in his eyes, which is brilliant. But in the media and the press generally, and people who are, I suppose, sensationalising it, he was now a millionaire and all this kind of stuff. But I just thought his sense of perspective within this, it's his home. And whatever it costs, I mean, I'm coming from Ireland, where we had this dreadful boom and bust, and now it's looking as if it's going to start booming again, where property values become unaffordable for people to live in. It's immoral, really, that profiteering on what is basically allowing a home to happen. And it's subtextual in our film, and it is a fairy tale romance, but it is kind of rooted in a reality whereby, a person's home is of massive significance. It's not just a profit-making exercise.
Yeah. It reminded me, Brendan, of one of my favourite films ever, which is Local Hero, and the Bill Forsyth picture. And it was that idea of big money going up against an alternative way of life which big money doesn't understand. And Fulton Mackay plays Ben the Beachcomber, who is offered all the money in the world to sell his beach, and he's not interested. And your film seems to have the same spirit. Do you think that's fair? I mean it as praise because I love that film.
No, I do think it. I think it's a very real presence in it. In the same way that Hampstead as a beautiful village is in it. In the same way that, the heath of itself, which is in, this massively expensive area, but anybody can access if they get on a bus and they go in and they can walk the heath for nothing and enjoy what's there. It's one of the brilliant things about London and about modern civilization that allows places that would have been in the ownership of a few now to become part of what people can enjoy, and the quality of life can be improved by living in it. What's interesting about this is that it's not a particularly messagey movie, and I hope there's no preaching in it.
No.
It's really just setting it there for people to see that actually the money in the end can be made to be irrelevant if the heart is in the right place.
Compare the pressures and difficulties of working in Hampstead with, I don't know, filming The Guard in Galway, which I understand was like the worst weather for 300 years. I imagine you all had a great time and ate in nice restaurants and had nice coffee.
In Hampstead, or in Galway?
Well, in Hampstead. Well, the weather, Galway, I'm sure is great, but I think the weather was slightly better in Hampstead.
The weather was slightly better in Hampstead. Yeah, we were lucky. We got it. Although the last week that we did in the park, it's in the heath itself, on the heath, we got rained out of it. But the initial bits, we got glorious sunshine. So for all the bits that we needed, we just, I mean, it showed itself off in a way that was quite ridiculous, really. It was absolutely beautiful.
Now, we see you also shortly in Alone in Berlin with Emma Thompson. I was watching the Paddington trailer as well, which has come up, where you're playing Knuckles McGinty. Now, that to me sounds as though you might not be a fine, upstanding member of society.
I think you might have cracked it. But I mean, just when you were asking about love interests in films, I mean, Alone in Berlin, I mean, as I said, Last Chance Harvey was one. It really jumped out at me. I loved that film, and I actually met Dustin Hoffman and Emma Thompson at the Golden Globes, which is not to name drop or anything like that. It's just it happened because I was thrilled about it. The two of them were nominated for that film, and they were together, and it was just one of those thrilling. And they were so brilliant, just to say hello and stuff. And then to get to work with Emma on Alone in Berlin, and we were man and wife in a relationship that is dead. And then their son is killed in the war, and they find a common purpose, just trying to put some kind of resistance down in the form of postcards in Berlin, all over Berlin. To work with her was an absolute dream, and that was a real love story too, coming from very, very different circumstances and in a very different time. But in terms of doing romantic leads, I would count that as one of them, even though obviously it's not out yet, and I'm not surprised you didn't think about it. But it's just, as I say, to work with somebody like Emma or to work with somebody like Diane Keaton is such a thrill. It's so difficult to quantify what a spirit of that nature brings to the creative enterprise. So working with these women, and I mean, it was a bit similar with Suffragette. The last couple of years have been fantastic for that. It's just a different from shooty bangs and jumping in. However well, written things are, if there isn't a female presence in it, it's never quite right.
A couple of listeners' questions before we finish, Brendan. Anastasia Ketsaeva, can we still hope for your directorial debut? Let me also express my admiration for your work, Mr. Gleeson. You are responsible for my huge love of Irish cinema, which Spirit shows somehow reminds me of my home country of Ukraine.
Oh.
So a love of Irish cinema, but a directorial debut is the question.
Well, actually, I'm hoping to. I was trying to make a film of It's Two Birds for a long time, the Flann O'Brien book, and then it came close, and then it went away. So I kind of left it sitting, and I've decided in the meantime, I'm doing a series over in America called Mr. Mercedes,
based on the Stephen King books.
Yeah, with David E. Kelly, who's an extraordinary. I worked with him in Lake Placid, and I wanted to get back working with him again, and that's just been brilliant. I just got back from South Carolina doing that. So what that does in a way is it allows me just the latitude to say, okay, I know I can start to do something. So I'm doing a short with my lads, hopefully sometime near the end of the year.
Your two acting lads? My
two acting lads and my writer lad who wrote it, who I kind of commissioned to. I asked him would he write one for the two of us. So he's done that. And so that will be my directorial debut.
Time for one more. Mark Elms's question. Mr. Gleeson, could you tell that Calvary was going to be an utter masterpiece just reading the screenplay?
Yeah.
There you go.
But thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I did, yeah. Yeah, no, it was special from the beginning. You never tell. You can never tell even when it comes out of the editing suite. And I'm going to the premiere of Hampstead tonight, but it'll be the first time I see it in front of an audience, and you never tell until it's in front of an audience. It doesn't exist until it's in front of an audience. I mean, that sounds like a bit posy, but that's true. It's somebody, Brian, my son was talking about it last night, about how collaborative an exercise, an artistic pursuit it is. Any part of filmmaking, whether you're an editor or an actor or a director or a writer or whatever you are with a screen, set design or whatever it is, it's such a collaborative thing. You're so dependent on other people. You're so dependent on the whole thing happening with, you know, and then it comes out and it doesn't make any sense until people either respond or don't respond to it, you know. So it's a very peculiar thing where you've only so much control, and then I suppose part of the beauty of it is that you have no control at all.
Brendan Gleeson, pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks, Simon.